Alright, recording is started now.
Alright, sounds good.
Get into position. Double
For your safety, please move behind the barrier.
Right, missed about half that fight, but we'll just take a look now what we're working with.
You are advised to move behind my barrier.
Enemies in our orbit. Ouch!
the power of destruction. Repair the damage.
Evidence suggests a sniper up ahead. Barrier in place.
From afar. Get into position.
Piece of junk.
Get behind the barrier.
Sterben nicht. Gale them a hole.
Barrier no longer exists.
Moving behind my barrier.
Alright, I see something we're going to talk about after we're done here.
Okay.
Barrier unstable.
Double kill. This will get into position. I excited to
Activating the barrier.
Alright, make sure that when you can actively be shooting at people that you're not reloading while you're in the middle of shooting at them, right? That just can't waste time. So
Kind of use
just
natural cover in between reloads.
exactly, yep. And then on top of that, just if you still have shots left, don't even go for a reload, right? Just use up all your ammo.
Okay.
Okay. When you get a flash and you like right click for the ball, you look to roll and then right click again a second time, and then that a lot of times can be a really good way to burst them down.
Right.
surrender to my will. Gale them a hole. The enemy.
Team up for special attack.
Alright, so gotta look to use our ultimate, right? Ultimates that are held on
Yeah,
to and
I
not
was-
used don't get value.
I was
Um,
definitely thinking about that, but I wasn't sure when to get that because I was really only seeing one person at a time when I
Yep,
was.
and seeing getting even one kill with it can be an effective way to use it sometimes. McCree
Okay.
ultimate is honestly, oops, sorry, I dropped my mouse there. McCree ultimate's a lot of the times not going to be the most powerful ultimate, so even getting one pick with it sometimes can be really useful because it can
Right,
be
sure.
a good, efficient way to get the pick.
Advised to move behind my barrier.
Touch from afar. This is my
Enemies in our orbit.
teleporter online.
Please move behind the barrier.
My path is full. Know your
Right.
place.
When you have that many picks, you can be a lot more aggressive with your positioning, and you can look to go forward and finish off people.
Okay.
You don't have to kind of play super passive and sit back when you know you're up 6 people, or not 6 people. Sorry, like when you're up a bunch.
Yeah. And this is just a weird time to push up now.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
I missed my opportunity of my window of opportunity.
Yep. So it was more when we first got the picks, not 10 seconds later when they've all
Yeah.
respawned.
Yeah.
Team up for special attack.
Surrender to my will.
Alright, when we're coming in and using your ultimate, pay attention to how many of your teammates are using your ults, because if we press tab now, we
We are
pretty much
all coming from the dumps. Yeah.
exactly right. We just use 6 ultimates, so make sure you pay attention to how many ults is our team using, because there's a lot of things that go into whether or not you're winning or losing a fight.
Right.
And it's not just
Sure.
how many people do we have alive, but it's also has to do with how many ults are we currently using. Which in that case, if we see we're using 5, we might want to be like, let's hold on to it for a minute.
For sure. I was gonna be alone.
Yep, so just make sure you're paying attention to what your team's up to.
Barrier activated.
This will restore you.
Easy.
I missed that shot.
Order is restored.
Observe the barrier.
60 seconds.
Junction.
They ain't finished yet. Come on. I need a doctor.
I require assistance.
Hold up.
30 seconds.
Helden sterben nicht.
Hold him back.
What is that melody?
We probably have looked to High Noon, the primarily monkey there. He's not going to be able to damage you fast enough to kill you while you charge that up. On top of that, there's a Valkyrie Mercy we could have gone for. Just in general, look to use your ultimate a bit more often, and how we can look to use your ult is essentially when you're looking for High Noon, you have multiple different ways that you can get away with it.
Right.
And I'm going to go to training range here just because we're going to go over something else after we talk about this.
Okay.
Essentially, you have two main ways and that you can look to get off a High Noon. First off, when it's a surprise advantage, right? When people don't know where we're at, when they don't really know where we're coming from, and means that they don't really have as much time to react, right? And to dodge the High Noon or to shoot at us, right? So when it's a surprise advantage, we're going to be able to get away with the High Noon a lot easier. We can also look for sufficient protection, such as if we have shields in our way, defensive abilities such as Bubble, Defense Matrix, right? Eat, like Sigma Eat, right? We have a bunch of different things we can use for protection. Or we can also just do it to where we're at a sufficient distance away. Like if they don't have snipers or something like that, and we're super far away, then fall off damage might not be enough to just to kill us. Because if they don't have the range to kill us, then we can just go super far away. And now they can't do anything to us. And then the other way that we can go for is like when just nobody can see us, nobody can look at us, right? Besides, like, for example, in that last fight, the only people that were able to actively see us was the Prominent Monkey and the Mercy, right? And therefore, they probably wouldn't have been able to kill us faster than we could charge up a High Noon to kill them, right? So, that's just a situation that we could have looked to use it in. But in general, we just want to look to use it more often, as that's how we're going to get more value. Ults that don't get used don't get any value. So if we're not using it, then we're never finding out how you can get the value out of the ult. So just make sure, first off, looking to use it, and then thinking about how you can always get more value with it. A good way that you can get value out of it is to look to go on like off angles with it. You also there when you're sitting on point, or like at the backup point, for example, right, or on a high ground. That point's very, very wide and open, right? If someone's out in the open, there's nowhere really for them to go. There's no real cover anywhere, so that point's a really good point to land a High Noon from, in comparison to the first point, right? Because on the second point, there's a ton of high grounds that you can use. There's a ton of open area that you can use. So just look to utilize high grounds, utilize open areas, and then try to use a surprise advantage to go for it, and then just don't hold on to it, right? Now, besides that, that wasn't too much of a problem game. I think that we overall didn't make many mistakes ourselves. Like even in that final fight, we the only thing that I would probably say we did wrong was that we just didn't use our ult, and we played a little bit too passive, and then that meant that we ended up losing as a result. First point, we did fine. We got 2 kills in the last fight. No real problem there. But again, we just didn't use our ultimate, and then that meant that we didn't get... I apologize, sorry. I just got a new mouse, and I'm used to it being wireless, and now it's wired, and I just lifted up my hand, and it fell back to the desk, and I broke my push-to-talk. All right, so in any case, in both fights that we lost, it was just because we didn't use our ultimates, so we just want to make sure that we are using that so we can get additional value and get easier kills. All right, besides that, not too many mistakes. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is crosshair placement. Now, looking back at the notes, it does not look like we went over crosshair placement. Are you familiar with the term?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So just as a reiteration, then, because especially on first point when I was just watching you do this, we're not always respecting it. So I think in general your mechanics are very very solid so far. We're hitting a lot of shots, a lot of headshots. Just in general, it's just about getting consistent, right? Because if it's
Mhm.
inconsistent at some points, we want to make sure that it's getting more and more and more consistent so that we can do more things. So crosshair placement, big first step to having good crosshair placement is to make sure that you're aiming at head level. Now, this is one of the big things I was noticing, especially when we were just spamming down the choke point on first point, was that we weren't necessarily always keeping head level. When you aim at body level, right, this means that to hit headshots, which are very obviously much better than hitting body shots, right? Um,
Mhm.
that to hit headshots, we have to adjust up and to the left or up and to the right, and therefore we have to travel more of a distance than if we went left or right, right? And that means that the shot is going to be more difficult to hit. Anytime you have to travel a further distance, that makes the shot a harder shot to hit. This is a harder shot to hit than this is, right? When we're already looking like right next to here, right?
Right.
So now, on top of that, McCree's a pretty spammy character, so, if we're just spamming down a corridor, if we're aiming at body level, right, these are all body shots, right? We're just spamming in here, all body shots. But if we're aiming at head level, now we're spamming down this corridor, and all these shots are just naturally hitting headshots, right? Because we're already aiming at that level, right? So, crosshair placement in aiming head level just kind of turns your natural shots into headshots, right? So it's almost easy to hit headshots.
Right.
Now, it's kind of saying it's not just about aiming head level, but it's also about aiming where we know people are going to be, right? So if someone's right side, we pre-aim top right, a little bit away from the wall, right, at head level, so that when we're going to shoot at them, it's very little adjustment, right? We already have our crosshair on them. They're on our left, so we're pre-aiming left side, already at head level, so that when we turn the corner, we're already aiming at their head, already super easy shots for us, right? So here we know they're slanted down a little bit, they're not at head level. This is the same way on a tank, we'd aim a little bit higher. On a Torbjorn, we'd aim a little bit lower. These guys are on a slant, so we're aiming low. So that when we're turning here, is very little adjustment before we're acquiring their head,
Right.
right? So that's just a big one. So far, crosshair placement and ultimate usage are the big ones. You can look to go ahead and get into another game. I don't think that last game was too difficult.
Mhm.
Looks like we were doing pretty fine.
Set 'em up, knock 'em down.
Yep, the problem when it comes to quick play, the very long queues means we lose, I think, a quarter of the session.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if because I feel like hmm, I don't know. I feel like I could use more help with DPS, which is always the problem because
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is that when it's when you're looking at quick play and competitive streaming, it's always a a kind of flip of the coin whether or not it's going to be a good game to review. Because that game was kind of like really weird because you guys were kind of rolling them and then just really
Yeah.
lost 2 straight fights and that was it, right?
Mhm.
So like you only made 2 mistakes the entire game, right? Um, so sometimes games aren't really fantastic to go over because there's not much to review. So
Right.
that's why where replay reviews really come
Yeah.
into play. But it's always it's going to depend on how people like to learn. But I think that replay review is a little bit of more efficient
Right.
option.
You get the most out of your
Yeah.
time. And then, is there any way besides like external recording to keep the review?
To keep
Because
it,
like
like after patches happen, is that what you were asking?
I think so. Well, it's kind of just like even then, if you it's only as you only keep the
Last 10
game,
games.
yeah, for like a
Yeah,
certain amount of time. It feels
there's
like,
a
or is it
there's
just
a
patches?
there's a pin feature where you can
Hmm.
it records the last 10 games and you can pin it so that they don't go away within that last 10 games. I'm spectating, by the way, but
Yeah.
they do get erased with patches, which patches happen every
Okay.
2 weeks roughly on Tuesdays. So you just got to be careful about that. I should probably write
Right.
write that down um on the day the patches happen, so so that I don't end up so I can tell people that. Um, but yeah, they happen roughly every 2 weeks, so you can hold on to a replay for roughly 2 weeks before it goes away.
Okay.
I ain't much for waiting around.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Out of curiosity, have you been finding your games going super easily or no?
Um, when I play DPS, I lose, and then when I play, and it's regardless of my outcome while playing DPS. But when I
Mm,
play tank, I usually win.
Much obliged.
mm.
It's very interesting because I feel like I don't know.
Right.
Healing. I feel like a new man.
The objective is now.
Did we talk about target priorities last time?
I think so.
Think so. Let me like
Yeah, because I think
so-
no, it was because I was playing ball and we talked about target priorities.
Same thing applies to McCree. And across any character, tanks aren't what you want to focus. We spent a very large portion of the first fight just kind of shooting at Hog there. Just make sure that
Right.
we're
I'm
actively
dead.
trying to seek out especially on DPS characters, we're actively trying to seek out supports in DPS unless tanks are the only thing that we can get to. They're
Mhm.
low or they're out of position, right? So shooting at Reinhardt when he's 1 HP is completely fine, right? But
Mhm.
shooting at Hog, spending the first half of the fight shooting at Hog when it's not really going to get you any value isn't what we want to be doing. There we got a little bit too far pushed forwards. Probably look for like a high noon from up here.
Right here, right now.
Well, anytime you
It's the
see,
time's passed.
anytime's no one's seeing you, right?
Rest in
If you're up on that high ground and you don't have people looking at you, then you're probably not going to die within the time it takes you to line people
Right.
up, right?
Okay.
It takes you like on a squishy target, it's only going to take you about 2 seconds to fully acquire the target, right? And that's not going to give them enough time to acquire your head, right? Unless they're already looking straight at you. Here, rather than backing all the way up, we could look to go like top right here, on that little high ground. Oh, top right, as in that little thing you're staring at. But yep, like this, yep. And then that way you don't have to back up all the way. You can still get a good line of sight on all of them. We just backed up pretty far.
Right.
Right. Watch the
But
kill
that-
feed
but that
before you're
would-
going for that.
Yeah.
Because even though we got a bunch of kills, we're still down a bunch of people. Now we have our team back, right? So we pulled it back.
my claim on the objective. Who's got the hot hand?
Right, positioning in the middle of the point, right? Good positioning is the usage of cover, bad positioning is the absence of cover. On top of that, we
Right.
want to be positioning along the high grounds whenever possible. On point, there's no real cover anywhere. On high grounds, fantastic positioning. We probably went over that on Soldier, is that you just want to be on high grounds, right? Especially on a character like McCree or Soldier. So make sure we're not sitting on point. On top of that, make sure that whenever you have a lull in time, right? Anytime there's nothing to shoot at, that you're not actively shooting anything, that's where we're reloading so that we can get ammo back, right?
Hmm.
And then we can come in with a full clip rather than coming in with 2 shots or one shot. Alright,
I'm
awareness
just wondering.
good.
Yeah. No, I was just. I had no idea where my tanks were.
Yep, and you don't
Okay.
necessarily need to always stick with your tanks. The only time you have to stick with your tanks is when essentially they're on a dive. Other than that, you don't want to stray basically be outside of the fight for too long, but you can be away from your team. The big thing there was that we just weren't aware of our surroundings, right? We weren't aware that the hog was there because we weren't
Right.
paying attention to where hog was, right? So we want to make sure that we're just paying attention to where are the other players in the lobby, right? Where's our teammates at? Where's the enemy teammates at? Because when we're not aware of that, then we end up dying, right? So far, looking like just initial assessment of strengths to weaknesses. General mechanics looking very, very fantastic. I think ulting is one of the bigger ones that needs to be worked on, especially with just the timing of when is it good to use it. Ability usage, not really too much of a problem. And then awareness and positioning being ones that still need to be worked on. Here, if you see that they have a Widowmaker, look to go
Yeah.
left or right. You don't just kind of sit main if there's nobody that's gonna help you get there. Right, there's a lot
We
of
lost this.
yep. There's a lot of times where we'll like kind of sit around and not do much. Like that's also been at other points, not just here. But while the Widowmaker is actively shooting at us, we're just kind of chilling main, right? And Widow ends up getting kills, and while we're not doing much. So make sure that we're just not hesitating main for too long, but we're making a decision and kind of going and doing it. Right? We want to make sure we're always actively doing something.
Right.
Okay, very nice. A little bit delayed though. You could probably go for that a little bit earlier when you see Reinhardt's low like that.
Right.
Well, make sure you're not straying too far. Yep, don't stray too far from cover, right? If you're hugging that corner, then hog can't hook you because you can just duck behind the wall, right? So just be very, very careful about the hook. Really prioritize your life, right? Because when you die, you lose a ton of value. On top of that, when we're just in that fight, make sure Mercy or the other DPS there was a priority over shooting at the hog.
This wouldn't be a problem with the Widow.
Yep. You can't contest her from that distance, so mainly just look to
Yeah.
avoid her unless you get closer.
Now,
You can't really rush a Reinhardt unless he's already low, right? And if
Yeah.
he's full HP, even if you get the flash off, he's still gonna be able to tank it, tank all the damage you're putting in on him if your team's not with you. So you can only do that if you have your team to back you up, right? Or he's already low to begin with. Just make sure you're not getting too aggressive on him when you don't have anything to help you out, right?
I feel like we're trickling. Because he's doing that. And then
Will heal you. Surrender.
Alright. Kind of tunnel visioning on the Mercy flying around and then forgetting about the Reinhardt an inch from our face. Right. I think during that fight, or during that round in particular, there's a lot of just lack of awareness, but then also not really understanding what we should be doing. And that resulted in us not really doing much at all in the first place. So first off,
I feel like I probably should have switched. I don't know, just to switch things up or something, because I felt that too, but I also felt I was I don't know, I did feel a bit lost.
yeah.
Like
So team Why don't we start off with team composition? So team comp dictates playstyle. When you are playing with a different team composition, and when you are up against a different team composition, you will play differently. First off, I'd probably say that up against a Widowmaker, we weren't really maybe playing too correctly. First off, we kept going down main a couple times, even without a shield, which meant that we ended up maybe getting picked. Watch your jump spamming. Now, jump spamming is a bad habit to get into, though it's not going to be anything big, major that's going to get you up a whole rank. Jump spamming is just holding down your jump button, and that's just going to make it easier, especially the higher up in ranks you go, for you to get headshot, because when you go up, you have to come down, so therefore it's a very easily trackable animation. Now, we also tried to contest the Widow a couple of times, and I'm gonna stream here a minute for you. That's probably not something that you're gonna want to do too much when you're at the range that you're at. We were trying kind of like at this range from the Widowmaker, and you can see we're not really gonna be able to do much if she's getting pocketed and we're this far away. Like, and because that's even if we're hitting all headshots, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots. If they're not getting healed, we hit those all in a row without missing a single shot, right? While they're actively shooting at us. As McCree, you are capable of playing at a long distance, and you are capable of playing at a short distance, but you most definitely do not prefer long or short distance. McCree is a mid-range character. The further away you go, the more fall-off damage you have, right? I think we talked about kind of the same thing on Wrecking Ball. So the further away we're at means that we're doing less and less damage, right? So 6 shots versus up here where it's a 3-shot body shot, right? 1, 2, 3, right? So we want to be making sure we're sticking within this 20 meter, range, right? If I think we get outside of this, and now it's 4 shots. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, actually no, it's not. Maybe I'm thinking of Ash right now. So we just want to make sure. Right, so now it's 4 shots, right? It's probably around 25 meters here. So just make sure that we're looking to stay within this, medium distance. When we're up here, McCree can fight up here, but there's a lot of better characters that can fight close range, right? Where we are trying to put ourselves at this range up against a Reinhardt, we're going to lose because Reinhardt's a close range character. We're a mid range character, and we're trying to fight a close range fight with him. So make sure we're trying to keep our distance from him. And then up against Widowmaker, she is a long range character. We're a mid range character, so we're trying to snipe her when she's getting pocketed by a Mercy, and we're playing at a long distance. So don't look to take that duel. So we're just playing our distances all wrong during that game. On top of that, we ended up kind of walking into the Hog a lot of the times. We would end up focusing Hog too much when he wasn't really the best target to be focusing. We ended up not respecting his hook and got hooked a whole lot of times and died. You've definitely seen the hooks get canceled, and hooks get canceled when you do this, and it breaks on the corner, right? A Hog cannot hook you around the corner. So if we see a Hog and a Hog's looking back at us, and we know, all right, he's probably going to hook us, right? We walk around the corner, and boom, he can no longer hook us, right? So good positioning is the usage of cover. Not just standing next to cover. If we're standing here and never duck behind this is now worthless, right? You can't stop at just standing in good spots. You also have to use the cover whenever it's needed. So when Hog's launching a hook, when we're low HP, when we see 6 people looking at us, right? These are times where we go, okay, let's duck behind the corner. Right? You can't just be next to cover, you have to use cover. So good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover, or just not using it, right? If we're just standing here without using it. So those are already 3 different matchups that we just didn't really get right in that fight. I don't think that we really had too much of a problem with Mercy. We didn't have too much of a problem with their other support. And then I don't even remember what their other DPS was. But just in general, that last map was just resulted from a lot of deaths, a lot of unawareness of like what range are we playing at, and then that just didn't really give us any effective, like, wasn't really making us a very effective character. Now, just make sure as well that you're keeping up your ult usage. We did only use our ultimate 1 single time in the last game, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking to use it more often. We talked about priority targets, right? And we also talked about we went over soldier, so I'd imagine we also went over a little bit of flanking, right? You're a flanky character. Did we talk about the difference between a off angle and a flank?
Yes.
Yep. So make sure that on McCree you're looking for off angles, right? And if fights are done, you can in between fights you can also look for flanks, right? If the fight has not begun and you are doing it in the middle of a fight, that is also another situation where you can flank, right? So if enemy team's there, our team's here, right? We can take that time to walk all the way around or walk all the way to high ground, right? And get a high noon off, right, from behind them. If they're not looking at us, we can get this off before anyone pays attention, right? Get it off, shoot at them, and then try to back off, right, and just get away, right? So just make sure we're doing something with high noon because we're holding on to it a whole lot of the time, right? You can look to go ahead and get into a queue. So
Okay, so within that, let's say the second map, when we're not really making a whole lot of progress within main, would you, if you were in my shoes, would you potentially, and you wanted to stay McCree, would you maybe like go like left in those buildings, or would
I'd probably say left would be most efficient than more efficient than going right side, as right side doesn't really put you in very fantastic positioning. Left gives you a lot of cover that makes it harder for Widowmaker to shoot at you. Right side, yes, also puts you out of Widow's line of sight, but then it also doesn't really set you up in the best positioning because it means that like they all can you don't really have any cover over there, if that makes sense, right? It's kind of out in the open. Honestly, either way would be fine, whichever way your team wants to go. And we can also cross through main if we have a Reinhardt, but there are also times where we just kind of were chilling there without a Ryan, and that meant we weren't doing anything. So if your Reinhardt's not there to let you to cross with you, then just make sure you're going and doing something else. In the first fight, I was like, okay, Reinhardt's not here. Just you don't want to sit there for 10 seconds, right? You want to be doing something. So we ended up going right side, and then that meant we weren't really able to do much. So potentially, yes, left side might be the. If you're trying to just go by yourself, left side might be the place where you want to go.
Mhm.
All right. Yep. So to reiterate, or talking about awareness, because I think awareness is one of the bigger things.
Mhm.
Make sure that the first thing we're doing every single game is paying attention to team compositions and thinking, how are we playing differently into those characters, and how are we playing differently with our team, right? We play differently when we have different healers, different tanks, right? If you're running a Ryan Zarya, you have a vastly different composition than if you're running a hog ball, right? You're running your positioning different, your play style different. So we want to make sure that we're paying very close attention to that. In the same way, we are playing very, very differently if the enemy team is on the comp that they had last game, or if they're on a full dive composition, right? If they're on a full dive, we want to make sure we're sticking with our team a little bit more because we don't want to walk off on our own and get punished and become a very easy dive target. But if they're not really on anything that can run in at us instantaneously and get us, we can afford to go off on our own a little bit more, right? We don't want to be outside of fights for too long. That is a thing that you want to make sure you're not doing. Is just you want to be able to participate when fights are happening, but if the fight's not happening yet, or if the off angle is only going to take a couple seconds, right? Then you want to make sure then you don't have to stick with your team as much. In general, I think let's see. Last time, did we talk very much about how you can look to apply awareness or really apply anything of this that we talked about? I'm just kind of reviewing some of the notes we talked about, and I don't really see anything
Mhm.
particularly talking about that.
Um,
Do we talk about
I'm not sure we did talk about. We did talk about awareness, but I'm not sure if we talked about how to apply awareness.
Yeah. Did we talk about like autopiloting?
No.
No. All right. So then we'll talk about that real quick. So awareness being one of the bigger things to work on during the session so far. That you might say like boogie. That sounds like a really vague or complicated thing to try to work on, right? Because it does sound a little bit more complicated to work on awareness than it does to, like, for example, work on your ability usage or your positioning, right? Positioning ability usage has a little bit more of like an in-game aspect that becomes a little bit easier to understand, right? But when it comes to working on awareness, it's you work on it the same way that you work on really anything else. Is you want to make sure that while you're playing, you really focus on it, right? So the easiest way to not improve is to autopilot while you play, to just focus on winning or not to be thinking at all while you play, and that's going to be how you never get better. When you are playing, what you need to be doing is focusing on it, and we'll take awareness as an example. And we go, okay, awareness, right? And we're constantly reminding ourselves. We're really focusing in on awareness, right? Make sure we're looking left, make sure we're looking right, do a quick 360 once in a while, keep your audio up, right? Make sure where's the enemy team, where's our team, right? So we want to make sure we're giving ourselves these reminders while we play. And when you'll notice that, when we do that and we're really focusing in on that particular area, that you will start to get better at your awareness. And when you do that for long enough, you will start to develop that as a habit. And when it develops as a habit, you no longer have to put in so much brain power. And therefore, you can now dedicate that brain power to something else. You can put that focus in on a different area, right? Now, you don't want to focus on all 20 of the things that we've talked about, because that means that you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to know what to focus on first, right? But you want to make sure you're focusing in on like one category at a time, or 1 to 3 different kind of subcategories at a time, right? One to three things. So that's how you look to focus in on awareness and look to focus in on anything that we talk about, is just make sure you're focusing on it while you play. You're not just autopiloting.
Right.
Yep. So on continuing on awareness, I don't think that I've seen too much of an awareness issue when it comes to like our HUD. I think our HUD watching is pretty fine. As well as that, I don't think that I've seen too much of an issue with kill feed watching. Maybe just slightly, just make sure keep your eye on that. On top of that, just make sure I'm spectating, by the way, but make sure also
Mhm.
just keeping your eye on your ult charge. So we're just paying attention to, okay, I should probably be looking for your ult right about now. Whenever you're like 80, 90 to your ult, you can be kind of planning in your head, how am I going to use this thing, right? You can start the planning process, and that gives you a little bit more time to work with it. But I'd probably say the biggest two things that we're looking at with awareness is, one, make sure you're just paying attention to the positions of players in the game. So what's up with your team, where's the enemy team at, right? Make sure we're paying attention to the positions. And then number two is paying attention to team compositions and how that affects play style, right?
Mhm.
So taking a look at our team comp right now, right? We have a Ryan Zarya, McCree Soldier, Moira, Ana. So did we talk about, or no, okay, I don't think we talked about that, but are you familiar with the 3 different compositions in the game?
We did talk about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that? All right.
Yeah, what was that? The brawl, and then I don't know if it was poke, and then there was a hybrid.
Yeah.
But
Brawl, poke, and dive, right? Or brawl, spam, and dive are the terms that I
Right.
use. So what composition would we be on right now?
there's definitely some brawl, and so it'd probably be a hybrid then, because our DPS are definitely poke, and then Ryan obviously needs to get closer to do what he needs to do.
Unless it's whenever you have like 4 or more to one role, that's mainly that composition. So if we have 4 brawl characters, which we do right now, then this is a brawl composition with just a little bit of spam in there, right? Now, what comp are they on, or at least what characteristics do they have?
Dive, 100%.
Yep. So what does that mean for our positioning?
We need to. I don't know. I feel like I definitely need to not, because they can definitely punish me for being by myself.
Yep. So why did we maybe die in that last in that fight there?
I think the main reason for me was I kind of yeah, that's my fault, 100%. But it was shoot. I wasn't aware when I was still shooting at them, and then I realized everyone was dead and no one was with me, and then.
Or it wasn't that everyone was dead, it was that we weren't paying attention to where they were, and we actually ran off on or we stayed by ourselves. They all dropped to cart, and then they were all below you, right? And we ended up staying high ground by ourselves, right? So we want to, again, make sure we're paying attention to our team, right? Pay attention to team comps, right? They're on dive, so we want to make sure we're sticking with them. When you're coming out of spawn here, usually you want to try to go high ground rather than bottom, because high ground is just fantastic positioning, right? Good survivability, good cover usage, good, and now your whole team's bottom left, right? But that was because we were kind of there to start.
Yeah.
if you are capable of being off on your own, you just want to be very, very careful.
I need a doctor.
Thank you.
Much obliged.
Right, don't stop everything that you're doing just to request healing. Right, you press the button and you just keep shooting people. Your Reinhardt had just landed a shatter, so there was like a baby diva and someone else sitting on cart doing nothing. Right, very easy kills if we're just paying attention.
Oh, then I suck. Okay.
Right, so we're looking for high noon right about now. All right, or not now, not now. I'm saying we're looking for high noon in this fight. Right.
Maybe I go up here or up there.
Mm-hmm.
I need to recharge.
Yep, or you can also look to just use, you can sit down main and look to use your Reinhardt shield, right, is another thing we could do. What would be maybe a good situation, or sorry, let me just, I guess I don't have to ask that, but, you know, the other thing we could look for is, like, if Echo boosts up in the air, right, because then that becomes a very easy kill to get. When make sure they're all out in the open and they're not next to cover. You can also wait till, like, after they've used bubbles.
So I'm making some serious moves, so I'm gonna go up here.
Engaged. Surrender to my will.
And then she eats it all. This has been unfortunate.
Alright, so when we're going for high noon, we need to think of what things can block our high noon, right? Or what things can kill me, what things can block it. On their team, what are some of the things that can block your high noon?
Deflect, Diva, Bubbles,
Immortality.
the Immortality, yeah.
Yep. So we just want to make sure that we're paying attention to those things. If you know that they have so much that can contest you, it might not be worth it to set up
To go
that
for
big.
the full team,
Yep,
yeah.
the big, you know, maybe don't want to go for the big long setup where we're outside of the fight for too long. There when we went for that high noon, we kind of put ourselves out of the fight for a little while. Again, make sure that you're not doing that in the middle of the fight. That would probably be a little bit better of a thing to do right before the fight starts. Right, that way you don't have to take 10 seconds outside of the fight to rotate up there. On top of that, the other thing you could look to do is if you know that they have so much that can contest you, and again they have a dive comp who does better when you're off on your own. You might just be better off sitting right behind your Reinhardt and just ulting when he's shielding you, and then maybe you can go for like a kill on the Echo, right? And that's it, right? You don't need to go for a big team wipe. You don't need to go off on your own. You just want to make sure that you're assessing the situation, looking at the team compositions, and making your plan accordingly, right? Because a big part of that game is that we were a little bit slow to adjust to their team comp, right? That got us killed on first point. It meant that it got us killed and wasted our ultimate on second point, right? So just got to get more efficient and getting better at doing that the first thing each game.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Talking to me?
Oh, yeah.
No.
I thought you paused, so you were asking me a question. I was.
No. Nope, didn't say anything. Yeah, you can go ahead and get into a queue here. Actually, we're probably not going to be able to like finish a full like game here, but we can.
I can try a ball game again really quickly.
All right.
That might be a faster queue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to go over the like kind of we don't have to do a super long review since you have your notes, so we'll just do like the last 5 minutes on that.
And then tank is queued in less than 25.
Okay, I'm spectating.
Traveling to Dorado.
No dying on my watch.
Never stop fighting for what you believe in. Look after yourselves out there. I'll get us home safe.
All right, so we're on ball. Ball's a lot less reliant on his team, so paying attention to our team comp doesn't have as much of an importance, but we definitely 100% need to be paying attention to the enemy team here. Right, just to check how many stuns they have, what things can contest us. Yeah, I like where we're starting here. That's a really good spot.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Stop the
Okay.
payload.
So
Oh, so what's
I'm
the first
playing-
character that you're looking at?
I'm seeing Bastion and an Ana. Ana, I definitely have to keep. So this is looking pretty gross.
Oh.
I'm gonna try to avoid the Ana.
So
and then
again,
I don't need to do that.
gotta make sure that we're trying to do that analyst as fast as possible, because we still sat around for a little bit, right? We want to make sure we're still engaging at the same time, but we're kind of thinking about it while we're going in, right? We don't have to sit around for 20 seconds and then go in, because the game's already 50 seconds in the game now.
Okay, maybe. I think a Zarya could work.
Good. Ball's also a very, very flexible character, and he's not too bad into that. The big thing that we just want to make sure we're doing is pay attention to the Bastion and where is he positioned. Try to avoid him. Try to make sure that we're trying to go on people who aren't with Bastion, and try to just make sure you're getting out of there fast. You're not staying for too long.
Right.
Did we talk about how on Ball you can just roll off of anything? Like there, you can just look to slam off of the high ground.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Right.
I didn't get any.
Look to avoid slamming if Bastions already knows who you are and is looking at you.
Right, for sure.
The payload has reached.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Right, we just have to be very, very aware of where's Bastion, what is he looking at, because he is definitely our #1 threat.
For sure, for sure. And then I should probably be doing
what-
stuff.
Much kill feed, right? Up a bunch of people, can look to get much more aggressive now. Like there, for example, was the Zenyatta with the Bastion? Does Zenyatta have anybody with him?
Heroes never die.
Right. So in that case, because I
You
feel
probably
like
just good.
I probably just shoot at him.
You probably slam and then shoot at him, right? When he was all isolated on his own, you had nobody who could help him out, right? So when
Oh my. This is a struggle.
okay, in between fights, we want to make sure pressing tab. This lets us know when characters have made swaps. This will let us pay attention to our ults.
Okay.
So what's different?
Tracer could be a problem, but it's definitely I can definitely be more aggressive without the Bastion.
Mhm.
Be a backline presence.
The payload.
That was a battle, but we're fine. Still gets the Ana.
Yeah, very nice.
Let me get you patched up.
Also look to go grab the Mega Rat rather than just waiting around for her to heal you.
Right.
Right. Probably say definitely look for more slams when you're given the opportunities to. We're not using slam very often, especially when you're getting off of things.
Okay, now they have a Brig now, which is I think gonna bring some more struggle.
No one can hide from
Right. In between this fight, you're gonna be resetting up on high ground, right? That way we don't have to waste the grapple going for a slam right off the bat. Gives us good visibility and it can test anybody if they have going high ground.
Okay, there's definitely not as many people I can punish. Okay.
Heroes never die.
I'll keep you here.
Oh.
This will envelop you.
Okay,
I'm just
looking
waiting till I have
for
my
ult
grapple
here.
again.
Yep.
Oh, I thought she would have hit a mine. Well.
Alright. After you kill her, look up real quick. Alright, make sure you're watching that. This gets me every time, but half your mines get stuck on the ceilings when you don't pay attention to ceilings. So make sure you're
I
not.
did? Oh,
Yeah,
sweet.
so yeah, you had a good. No, it wasn't half of them, but you know, good like quarter of your ult got stuck up on the bridge, right? So we want to make sure that we're trying to keep when we're ulting, we're trying to make sure that we're not next to anything in the sky, because then that that
Right.
will really screw with your ult.
Form up.
Remember, after fights, we're repositioning the best place possible. Just get back up to the high ground, right?
Probably. Oh. What is that's a funky spot.
The world's greatest sniper.
Still up there.
Sing for me.
The battle continues.
Oh, I thought it would totally land up there. Well,
I fought you. Name.
Nano boost administered.
and
Oh,
reset.
snap. Leave the game real quick. I forgot that we had that we were running on a time limit here.
Oh.
All right. So, to wrap up the session, so it really looked like on that round, not too much of a struggle besides the bash in at the very beginning, but then that comes back to again identify the team comp. What do you have to work with? Pretty much you can run anything and anything in this game most of the time. Can't that's how one tricks get around counters. You just have to understand compositions and how you're changing your playstyle accordingly. I'm gonna share my screen here. We'll just do quick main points. We won't go over anything too in depth, but we went over your McCree mainly here, and then a little bit of ball. McCree, not too much of an issue with your abilities. Just make sure I think with roll, the only thing I said was when you flash a ball, just right click them, roll, and then right click them again. Right, that way you're getting more damage in. I didn't see any problems with your flash. Ultimates was a big thing. Just make sure that you're looking to actively use it more often. You'll get better with it the more you use it, right? Because you'll see, okay, this worked, this didn't work. This worked, this didn't work. When you never use it, you never get to see this worked, this doesn't work, and then you never learn, right? So look to use it more often, and then that'll give you tools to work with. Actually, here I am going over all the things when I said it wasn't. Okay, so main points. Awareness, I'd probably say, would be number one so far this session. Just make sure you're paying attention to your team compositions and what's going on around you in game. Not too much of a problem with your HUD. Number two, I'd probably say, is your ult usage, specifically on McCree. Number three is your positioning. Number four, probably say ability usage for ball, and then your mechanics for McCree is just make sure you're aiming head level and respecting the what do we call it, the
Other people's abilities. I know it was
Sorry.
the hook and stuff, but
yeah, respecting hook, but I was talking about mechanics. Is crosshair placement, right? Respecting crosshair
Right.
placement, right? Make sure we're using that. And then number 5 for ball is going to be mechanics. Number 5 for McCree is going to be ability usage, because on ball mechanics isn't too much of an issue. On McCree, abilities aren't too much of an issue. So for those two, nothing really the same, right? But in general, awareness was big for both of them. Positioning also doesn't really matter too much with ball. Just make sure you're repositioning between fights. Right, but do you have any questions for the session, or just in general?
I see people use McCree ult just to reload. When is that appropriate?
That's appropriate when you need an emergency reload, right? So that's, for an example, would be if you have a tank, right? Usually it's gonna be when you have a tank. tank on you, right? So for example, you flash a ball and you don't have your roll to reset, right? So let's say we don't have roll, or we do have a roll, but he just has a ton of shields, right? So we can flash him, roll, right click, high noon cancel, right click, right, and that gives us a full extra clip, right? So that's useful to mow down tanks sometimes if they're right on top of us and we need it. We can also do it if we just want to keep on mowing. Like if we're essentially, you use it whenever you just want more ammo, emergency, right? It's a McCree ult, like I said, isn't like any powerful of an ultimate, especially the higher up in ranks you go. So it's pretty. You can use it like that because you're not gonna get too much value with it in other situations a lot of the times. But honestly, I don't use that too much when I play McCree. It's gonna be really situational, and you just have to pay attention to. You can just really use as a tool in your arsenal that you can use once in a while if you feel a situation is right. I don't think it's bad usage at all. It's definitely good in certain situations. Right, does that kind of answer your question? So the answer is it's vague. The answer is maybe sometimes.
Draw.
Right, because I think it is definitely like it is a very situational
Yeah.
type of ability.
All right. Any other questions?
I think that's about it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, then I'm going to end the recording.